everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm the Cornish Witch.
Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm the Cornish Witch. Today I wanted to talk about your Book of Shadows or your grimoire. It doesn't really matter what you call it, and it's really individual to you. So you don't have to get a beautiful like leather-bound book with Book of Shadows or grimoire emblazoned across the front of it. That's completely unnecessary. For anybody who's practicing in secret, you can just buy a pretty book from, I don't know, Poundland or Home Bargains, or if you're in America, Dollar Tree, and just call it your journal. It doesn't have to be called a Book of Shadows. If you're struggling and you don't really know what to call it or what to put in it, you could start thinking about herbs and their purposes, or plants, because that's a lot more kind of, I guess, socially acceptable if maybe whoever you live with isn't okay with the idea of you being a witch. But as we go along, you're probably going to realise I have quite a lot of ADHD traits, and when I decide I'm going to do something, I have to do it right that second. Can't wait, have to do it right now. And that was the same about 20 years ago, when I decided I was going to start my Book of Shadows. So I had to find a notebook. Went out shopping on the weekend with my stepmother and my friend, and I had to find the notebook. Had to find the book. I had all these like delusions of grandeur that it was going to be like the Book of Shadows from Charmed, and it was going to be this beautiful book. But that sort of thing would A, be out of my price range, and B, I would have messed it up. If I'm honest, I'd have been too scared to write in it, and I'd have messed it up. So I spent all day looking for a book. I've always had issues being able to write in a straight line. I tend to kind of start off well and then curve up at the end. So I knew I had to have a book that had lines in it, but I just wanted it to look pretty. So eventually I found this notebook. It's fairly pretty, it's alright, and started making my Book of Shadows. Unfortunately, because of my ADHD, slightly, I guess, autistic-y traits, I couldn't cope with the idea that if I wrote something in the book, I would then write something else. But if I wanted to add something to the first subject, it would be on a different page in the book, and it wouldn't follow sequentially in the book, and that really upset me. So I went a really long time not writing anything in the book. Probably the best part of 10 years, if I'm honest. Like, too scared to write anything because it wouldn't be in the right order in the book. And then I'd seen some videos and some Books of Shadows on Pinterest. Love Pinterest. If you're looking for any kind of witchy ideas, Pinterest is brilliant. So I found some people that had made like ring binders into the Book of Shadows, and thought that was a brilliant idea. However, it took me about 5 years to actually do this, because as much as I wanted to put everything in the ring binder, I didn't want to damage this book. I'd had this book a long time, and I was really worried about like ripping the pages out. The idea really, like, honestly, saying it now, like, I still feel a little bit sick about it, if I'm honest. So that really upset me. It took me a really long time to get the courage up to do it. But when I dived back into this journey wholeheartedly last year, I was like, I need to write in the book. I thought about maybe transcribing everything that was in the book onto separate bits of paper and starting from scratch. But I'd written a lot in the book when I was younger. And I really liked how in the book you could see kind of how I grew. Not just like grew in my craft or my practice, but how I grew up. The changes in my handwriting were massive. And I really liked that, and I wanted to keep that. And you're probably thinking, why didn't you just start again? But I'm too lazy for that, if I'm honest. Far too lazy for that. So I found a folder. So we're going to go through the folder now. I'm not going to show you everything in the folder just because it's my book of shadows and it's quite personal to me, but I'll give you a basic idea of what I put in there and the way I structure it. Okay?
So here is the folder. As you can imagine, it took me forever to find a folder that I really liked, enough to make it my book of shadows. Oh, and also in frame, here is my beautiful 101 Dalmatians Cathkidston coaster. Love that. So yeah, it took me ages to find the folder. I think I eventually found this one in the range, and I really like it. So let's get started. So this is the first page. I realise this looks really childish, but this was the original first page of the book that I did when I was 14. I also have this little charm on a string here, and this is my little witchy W that I bought the same day as I bought the book, and it used to be tied to the top of the spiral bound book. So on our first page here is some random little weird love spells, I guess. 3 little love spells, an anti-jealousy spell, and a dream maker spell. As you can see, these are cut out of a magazine. There was a teenager-y magazine that was really popular when I was obviously a teenager, and they had this witchy section in it, and I thought it would be really, really cool at the age of 14 to cut the spells out and put them in my book. So I've kept these here as a reminder of that. Over here, this is a fairly recent addition, is a table of contents. So I can, as you can see, I've got little tabs at the top, just here. So I can see how many points in something as I need and go straight to that tab. I have little stuck on images here. I've done that throughout my book. I'm not very artistic, but I wanted my book to look pretty. I have a lot of Book of Shadows envy for people who are artistic and just draw them with the most beautiful illustrations in their books. I cheat and I get the pictures off the internet and print them out. So first off here we have a book blessing. I've had that for years. As you can see, the handwriting is slightly different. As is this. This is a newer edition. This was just a few little reminders for myself that actually you don't have to be a perfect witch. You see all these things on social media about people, how they do a tarot card draw every day, and how they find time to meditate every day, and yeah, that's great, but you build up to that. You don't just start off like that. If you don't have enough time to do anything for a day or a week or a month, that's fine. You're still a witch. I have a little ritual here that I used to use for the winter solstice, bits about witchcraft, some types of witch. These are some bits from a book that I love, The Green Witch. All pretty pages, some bits about altars. I have some bits about deities, specifically Egyptian deities that I feel really connected to, Greek and Roman gods and goddesses, and Celtic deities. Because I am in Cornwall, so I am connected to Celtic myths and legends. So next up, we've got some branches of the Tree of Life. Now over here we have, turn the camera that way, you can probably... this is one of my favourite paintings. I have a print of it on my bedroom wall. It's called Blues Come Through by Alice Dalton Brown, and I just love it. It makes me feel like I'm in that room, breathing in the salty sea air, and I just love it. It makes me feel really free. So throughout my Book of Shadows, I have got random pictures. They might be pictures I've taken or just pictures that I love in the book. What next? So we've got some bits about herbs, some correspondences, and this is another picture that I have taken. That is in Cornwall, and some information about British trees. I feel very connected to trees. This is some information about poisonous plants that are often used in medicine. My favourite useless fact that I often tell to students is, especially because I deal with international nurses, foxgloves are really poisonous. They're incredibly toxic, and they contain digitalis, which is where the medication digoxin comes from. And this is a medication that's used to slow down the heart rate of people who their heart's going too fast. I love all this kind of stuff. It fascinates me. What else? This is a page from the Witch Box, the March Witch Box. And I love that because I've done my Book of Shadows like this, I can just add these pages in. I then have some recipes here for a natural weed killer and the fly spray that I make for my horses in the summer. Some bath oil recipes and recipes for moon water and black salts. I then have a page about incense and oils that are not pet safe. This is really important to know if you have pets. A lot of animals are really susceptible to smells and things. One thing I don't have on the thing there where it's written birds, cats and brachycephalic breeds of dog, hamsters are also really susceptible to strong smells. So these are things that are not good for your animals. My partner and I, we used to, before we realised this, if one of us had a cold, we would have a oil burner in the bedroom and be burning eucalyptus, and it made one of the dogs really ill. So obviously we have learnt from that and we don't do that anymore, and I'm very cautious to tell people to be careful what they burn around their pets. Here I have a simmer pot recipe list. Love a simmer pot. And another picture of the woods. This is my favourite woods with the dogs running ahead of me. We then have a casting of a circle. Again, you can see my handwriting is different because I was probably about 16 when I wrote this. And a couple of spells, one for revision, one to heal old wounds. An alternative peace spell. Simple ways to add magic to your daily life. And similar on this page. I'm a big fan of expressing gratitude. It's the easiest way to make yourself feel more positive about life, is look around you and realise what you're grateful for. Next we have some ideas for different Sabbats. I tend to write them as we come to the Sabbat. So obviously I wrote this one back in the autumn. This one at the beginning of the year. And this one last week or the week before for a star. I also then have, again, much older writing. some information about the Sabbats and their correspondences. Then have some information on different crystals, as you can see, written at the same time as the information about the Sabbats. We then have another beautiful picture of Cornwall, and a happiness spell and a spell to rid yourself of negative energy. And some more spells. Here we have some information about staging and cleansing your space. Ways to develop psychic abilities, information about scrying, dowsing, and then some information about chakras. So I've got a fair bit of stuff on chakras. About spirit guides. I've not done a great deal of work with spirit guides yet. And another picture of one of my favourite places. And some information about shadow work. At the back here I have got some information about tarot. Basically because I didn't like going through and looking at a book, I wanted it all in my book of shadows. So I have that in there, and I also then at the back here somewhere have a few pages that I use as a journal. So I very often, if I'm going to be journaling or writing down something that's happened to me, something that I found interesting, I very often, I'm not at home or I'm at work, so I will write it down on whatever paper I have at that moment in time and then add it into the plastic wallet at the back when I'm finished. I hope this video was useful to you. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. Blessed be.